My name is Owen Hartley. I'm 34 years old, and I count things for a living. I work night inventory at a Cisco distribution center on the east side of Terre Haute, Indiana. 11 at night until 7 in the morning, 5 days a week. I drive a forklift in loops through aisles of industrial shelving, scanning pallets of canned goods and restaurant supplies, checking numbers on a handheld scanner against numbers on a clipboard. The building is the size of an airplane hangar. Most nights, I see maybe 3 other people total. I live alone in half of a duplex on Maple Street, 2nd floor, the side with the crooked mailbox. Rent is $5.40 a month, utilities included. The landlord is 78 and doesn't fix things unless they're actively on fire. The stairs creak. The hot water takes 4 minutes to arrive. I've been here 2 years. I get home most mornings around 7:30, eat something microwavable, watch part of whatever's on cable, and sleep until 3 in the afternoon. Then I get up, go to the gym for an hour, buy groceries if I need them, and kill time until my shift starts at 10:45. I don't call it a routine. Routines are something you choose. This is just what happens. The divorce was finalized 2 years and 4 months ago. I still have Laura's spare key in the drawer by the sink. I don't know why. I also still have a recipe for lasagna that serves 8 folded inside a cookbook I never open. Sometimes I pull it up on my phone by accident when I'm looking for something simple. I scroll past it. The duplex is old enough that the wall between the 2 units is basically decorative. I can hear everything from the other side. Footsteps. Water running. The faint sound of a television. For the first 3 months I lived here, the other half was empty. I got used to the silence. Then someone moved in. I noticed the car first. A blue Honda Civic, parked in the spot next to mine. Then I noticed the lights going on at 6 in the morning, which is right when I'm getting home. We didn't overlap. I'd pull into the driveway, see her car already gone. I'd hear her come home around 4:30 in the afternoon, while I was at the gym or buying groceries. For 2 weeks, I never saw her face. The mailboxes are downstairs, in the entryway between the 2 doors. Hers started filling up with catalogs and envelopes with school district logos. I didn't look closely. It wasn't my business. We met on a Saturday in October. I'd gone down to check my mail around 2 in the afternoon. She was already there, standing in front of the boxes with a stack of papers under one arm and her keys in her other hand, trying to unlock her mailbox without dropping anything. I waited. She got the box open, pulled out 3 envelopes, and turned around. She looked tired. Not sleepy tired. Something older than that. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She was maybe early 30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked like it had been through the wash about 100 times. The papers under her arm had handwriting on them in red pen. "You're in the other unit," she said. "Yeah. I'm Claire. Claire Osborne." "Owen." She nodded. We stood there for a second. Then she said, "I teach at Woodrow Wilson High School. English. So if it's ever loud over there, that's just me losing my mind over semicolon usage." "I work nights," I said. "I'm not here much." "Oh. That's probably better." I didn't ask what she meant. She shifted the stack of papers to her other arm and went upstairs. I got my mail and left. After that, I started noticing things. Her car left every morning at 6:40. I'd be pulling into the driveway, and I'd see her taillights at the end of the block. She got home between 4:30 and 5 most days, sometimes later. I could hear her walking across the floor, hear the water run, hear the television come on. Around 10 at night, her lights went off. I'd be getting ready for work. The timing was almost perfect for never seeing each other. But I knew her schedule now. I didn't try to know it. It just happened. I knew she didn't cook much, because I didn't hear the usual sounds, no oven timers, no pans on the stove. I knew she stayed up later on Fridays, because the television stayed on past 11. I knew she did laundry on Sundays, because I'd hear the basement door open and close, hear her footsteps on the stairs. It wasn't like I was keeping track. I was just aware. 3 weeks after we met, it rained hard on a Tuesday. I got home at 7:30, same as always, and there was a package on the porch. Medium-sized box, addressed to Claire Osborne. It was soaked through. I picked it up and moved it under the overhang by her door. That was it. I didn't knock. I went inside, microwaved something, went to bed. The next day, I noticed her porch light was on when I got home. It hadn't been before. I didn't think much of it. People leave lights on. But then it stayed on. Every night, from whenever she got home until about a half hour after I pulled into the driveway. Then it would go off. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe she'd always planned to leave it on. Maybe it was on a timer. But I stopped wearing headphones when I checked the mail. November came. The temperature dropped. I started hearing the radiator kick on through the wall, the pipes clanging when the heat cycled. Claire's car started taking longer to warm up in the mornings. I could hear it idling in the driveway while I was inside making coffee I didn't really want. We crossed paths again in mid-November. I was taking the trash out to the curb on a Sunday night, and she was coming back from somewhere, carrying a canvas bag with groceries. She saw me, nodded, kept walking. I nodded back. That was the whole interaction. But the next week, when I went to take the trash out, I saw that her bin was already at the curb. I took mine down, put it next to hers, and went back inside. The week after that, both bins were at the curb when I went to check. I didn't take them down that week. But the week after, I did. And then it just became something that happened. I took both bins down on Sunday nights. Claire never mentioned it. I never mentioned it. It was just easier than leaving hers where it was. I didn't examine it. The weekends were the hardest part. My schedule didn't change, but hers did, so sometimes I'd hear her during the day. I'd be awake at noon, trying to sleep, and I'd hear her walking around, hear the television on. Once, I heard her on the phone, voice muffled through the wall. I couldn't make out words, but I could tell she was frustrated. The conversation went on for 20 minutes. When it ended, I didn't hear anything for a while. Just silence. I got up. I went to the kitchen. I stood there for a minute, looking at the wall, and then I made myself leave the apartment. I went to the gym. I stayed an extra hour. December started cold. The kind of cold that makes the old windows rattle in their frames. I started hearing Claire's footsteps more clearly through the wall, like the cold made the building contract. I could hear when she got up in the morning, hear the shower run, hear her moving around getting ready for work. I didn't want to notice. But I did. On a Tuesday in early December, I got home at 7:30 and her car wasn't there. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes she left early. But then it wasn't there when I woke up at 3. It wasn't there when I left for work at 10:30. I told myself it wasn't my business. But I noticed. Her car was back the next day. I didn't ask. We didn't have that kind of relationship. We didn't have any kind of relationship. We were just two people who lived on opposite sides of a wall and happened to be aware of each other. That was all it was. I kept telling myself that. But when I got home the next morning and saw her porch light on, I felt something I didn't want to feel. Something like relief. Like the building was supposed to have both sides occupied, and it was wrong when it didn't. I went inside. I microwaved something. I ate it standing at the counter, staring at the wall. Through it, I could hear Claire moving around. Getting ready for work. The water running. Her footsteps crossing from the bathroom to the bedroom and back. I heard her leave at 6:40, same as always. I didn't go to bed right away. I sat on the couch for a while, listening to the silence she left behind, and I tried to figure out when I'd started organizing my awareness around the fact of her. I didn't have an answer. I just knew that the building felt different when she wasn't there. And I didn't know what to do with that. The laundry room was in the basement, down a set of stairs that felt steeper than they probably were. 2 washers, 2 dryers, all of them older than I was. A folding table someone had left behind years ago. 1 fluorescent light that flickered if you looked at it wrong. I did laundry on Sundays, usually around 3 in the afternoon. I'd haul my basket down, start a load, and sit on the basement stairs with my phone until the washer finished. The room smelled like detergent and rust and something underneath that might have been mold. I didn't mind it. The first Sunday in December, I went down at 3 and Claire was already there. She was sitting on the folding table with a book open in her lap, 1 washer running. She looked up when I came in, then back down at her page. "Hey," she said. "Hey." I loaded my clothes into the other washer, added detergent, started the cycle. Then I stood there for a second, trying to decide what to do. I usually sat on the stairs. But that felt like I was leaving. So I sat on the floor instead, back against one of the dryers. Claire kept reading. I pulled out my phone and opened it, then realized I had nothing to look at. I put it away. The washers ran. The sound filled the room, a rhythmic thumping that made conversation difficult even if either of us wanted to have one. Claire turned a page. I watched the light flicker. After about 10 minutes, she said, "This book is terrible." I looked over. "Yeah. I bought it because someone on the department book club list recommended it. But it's just miserable people being miserable to each other for 300 pages. She closed it and set it on the table beside her. "I don't know why I keep reading things I don't like." "You don't have to finish it." "I know. But I always do." She looked at the book like it had personally offended her. "It feels like giving up if I don't." I didn't say anything to that. She sat there for a while, legs swinging slightly off the edge of the table. Then she said, "Do you like your job?" "Not really." "But you've been there a while." 2 years. That's longer than most people stay at jobs they don't like." "It's quiet," I said. "I don't have to talk to anyone." She nodded, like that made sense. "I used to think I liked teaching. Now I think I just like the idea of it." "What's the difference?" "The idea doesn't involve parents emailing me at 11 at night because their kid got a B-." The washer clicked over into the spin cycle. Claire pulled her knees up onto the table and wrapped her arms around them. She looked tired again, that same worn-down tired I'd seen when we first met. "Sorry," she said. "I don't know why I said that." "It's fine. I don't usually complain to neighbors I barely know." "We've been here for 90 minutes, I said. "That's basically a long-term friendship." She almost smiled. "Not quite, but close." When the washers finished, we moved everything to the dryers without talking. Then we sat back down in the same spots and waited. Claire didn't pick up her book again. She just sat there, staring at nothing in particular. I didn't mind the silence. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was just 2 people in a basement waiting for laundry to dry. When my dryer finished first, I folded my clothes quickly and headed for the stairs. Claire was still waiting. At the doorway, I stopped. "See you around," I said. "Yeah. See you." I went upstairs and didn't think about it until later that night, when I was getting ready for work and I realized I'd been in the same room with another person for an hour and a half and it hadn't felt wrong. That bothered me more than it should have. The next Sunday, we ended up in the laundry room at the same time again. I didn't think it was on purpose. Our schedules just overlapped. Claire was reading a different book, this one with a bright yellow cover. I sat in the same spot on the floor. We didn't talk much. She asked if I wanted the detergent when I was loading my washer. I said I had my own. That was it. But it became a pattern. Every Sunday, around 3, we'd both be in the basement. Sometimes we talked. Mostly we didn't. It was just something that happened. The trash bins kept going out on Sunday nights. I'd take them both down to the curb, and on Tuesday mornings, I'd bring them both back up. Claire never mentioned it. I never mentioned it. But her porch light stayed on until I got home. In mid-December, Claire's schedule changed. I noticed because her car started leaving later in the mornings, 7:30 instead of 6:40. And some days, it didn't leave until 8. I didn't know why. I didn't ask. We crossed paths on a Thursday morning. I was coming up the stairs with groceries, and she was heading down, moving slower than usual. She had her bag over one shoulder and a travel mug of coffee in her hand. Parent-teacher conferences, she said, like I'd asked. Schedules all over the place this week. That sounds exhausting. She stopped on the landing and looked at me. Really looked, like I'd said something unexpected. It is, she said. Then, thanks. I didn't know what she was thanking me for. I just nodded and kept going upstairs. But I thought about it later. How she'd looked surprised that I'd said anything at all. Like most people didn't bother acknowledging that her job was hard. That night at work, I counted pallets and tried not to think about it. 3 days before Christmas, I got home at 7:30 and Claire's car hadn't moved. That was unusual. It was a Monday. She should have left for work hours ago. I went inside and made coffee I didn't want, and I listened for sounds through the wall. Nothing. No footsteps. No water running. No television. I told myself she could be sick. Or she could have left with someone else. Or it could be a holiday break I didn't know about. I went to bed. When I woke up at 3, her car still hadn't moved. I stood at my kitchen window, looking down at the driveway, and I felt something close to panic. Which was stupid. I barely knew her. We'd had maybe 10 real conversations. But the silence from the other side of the wall felt wrong. I waited until 4. Then I went downstairs and knocked on her door. It took a long time for her to answer. When she did, she was on crutches. "Hey," she said. I stared at the crutches. Then at her ankle, which was wrapped in a brace and propped at an angle that looked painful. "What happened?" "Slipped on ice in the school parking lot yesterday. Sprained it pretty badly." She leaned against the doorframe. "I've been on the couch for 24 hours watching sitcom reruns and feeling sorry for myself. Do you need anything?" She hesitated. I could see her weighing the question, deciding whether to ask or brush it off. "I'm out of groceries," she said finally. "I was going to order delivery, but everything's backed up because of the holidays. I can go." "You don't have to. It's fine. I need to go anyway." She looked at me for a second, then nodded. "Okay. Let me get my phone." She hobbled back inside and came back with a list already typed out. She must have been thinking about it before I knocked. The list was specific: bread, peanut butter, bananas, soup, orange juice. Things that didn't require much preparation. "Thank you," she said when I took the phone to look at the list. "Really? It's not a big deal." "It is to me." I went to the grocery store and bought everything on her list, plus a few other things I thought might help. Crackers. Gatorade. I didn't overthink it. When I got back, I knocked again, and she opened the door looking embarrassed. "You didn't have to get all that." "I was already there." She took the bags and set them on the counter just inside her door. Then she pulled out her wallet. "How much do I owe you?" "Don't worry about it, Owen. Seriously. It's fine." She looked like she wanted to argue, but she was too tired. "Thank you," she said instead. "I mean it." I nodded and left. That night at work, I kept thinking about the way she'd looked standing in her doorway on crutches, trying to figure out how to ask for help. Like it was harder than just staying on the couch and going hungry. I understood that. The next day, I texted her before I went to bed. I didn't have her number, but it was on the list she'd shown me, so I saved it. "Let me know if you need anything else." She replied an hour later. "I'm okay. Thank you again." 2 days later, on Christmas Eve, I woke up to a knock on my door. When I opened it, there was a plate of cookies on the floor outside with a note, "Thanks for the help. See." I brought them inside and ate one standing at the counter. They were good. Peanut butter with chocolate chips. Still warm. Through the wall, I could hear Claire moving around. Slower than usual, but moving. I heard the television come on. Heard her settle onto the couch. I ate another cookie and tried to figure out when this had stopped being about proximity and started being about something else. After Christmas, Claire's ankle healed enough that she could walk without crutches, but she was still limping. I saw her a few times on the stairs, taking them slowly, holding the railing. I didn't offer to help. She didn't ask. But when I got home in the mornings, I started hearing her moving around earlier than usual. Like she was awake when I pulled into the driveway. And sometimes, when I was in the kitchen making coffee, I'd hear her in her kitchen doing the same thing. We weren't on the same schedule. But we were aware of it. On New Year's Day, I woke up at 3 and heard music coming through the wall. Not loud, just present. Something instrumental, piano maybe. I lay there for a while, listening, and I realized the silence didn't feel right anymore. The building was supposed to have sound in it. I got up and went to the kitchen. Through the window, I could see Claire's light on. I stood there for a minute, then I opened the cupboard and pulled out the lasagna recipe I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I looked at it. Folded it back up. Put it in the drawer where it belonged. Then I texted Claire. "Do you like Chinese food?" She responded 5 minutes later. "Yeah." "Why?" "There's a place near me that's open. I was going to pick something up." A pause. Then, "Can you get me orange chicken and fried rice?" "Sure." I went and got the food. When I came back, I knocked on her door and handed her the bag. "How much?" she asked. "12. She handed me a 20. "Keep it. Claire. You've bought me groceries and taken out my trash for a month. Let me buy you Chinese food." I took the 20. She smiled, just a little. "Thanks for asking." "No problem." I went back to my apartment and ate orange chicken at my kitchen counter, and through the wall, I could hear Claire doing the same thing. We weren't eating together. But we weren't eating alone either. It wasn't much. But it was different. And I didn't know what to do with different. January came in cold and stayed that way. The building's heating system struggled. I could hear the radiator through the wall working overtime, clanging and hissing at odd hours. Some nights I'd wake up sweating. Other nights I'd need an extra blanket. There was no middle ground. Claire's schedule went back to normal after the holidays. 6:40 departures. Home by 5. Lights off at 10. But something had shifted in the rhythm of it. I wasn't just aware of her anymore. I was oriented around her. I started noticing when she was late. When she skipped the sounds of dinner. When her television stayed on past midnight on a weeknight, which meant something had gone wrong. I didn't like how much I noticed. On a Tuesday in mid-January, I got home at 7:30 and saw that Claire's car was already gone, even though it was earlier than her usual departure. I didn't think much of it until I got home the next morning and her car still wasn't there. I went inside. I made coffee. I checked my phone. Nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business. She could be visiting someone. She could be on a trip. I didn't have a right to know her schedule. But when I went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence from the other side of the wall, and I realized I'd been building my entire routine around the small confirmations of her presence. The sound of her footsteps. Her car in the driveway. The light going off at 10. Without them, the building felt wrong. She came back Thursday night. I heard her car pull in around 7, heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard her door open and close. I was sitting on my couch doing nothing, and when I heard those sounds, something in my chest loosened. I didn't text her. I didn't knock. I just sat there, relieved, and hated myself a little for caring this much. The next Sunday, we were both in the laundry room again. Claire looked more tired than usual. She wasn't reading. She was just sitting on the folding table staring at her phone with an expression I couldn't read. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up, surprised. "Yeah. Just dealing with some stuff." "Work stuff?" "Family stuff." She put her phone down. "My mom called. She wants me to come visit next month, but I already used most of my personal days when I sprained my ankle, and she doesn't understand why I can't just take more time off." "Can you?" "Technically. But then I'd be behind on grading, and behind on lesson plans, and I'd spend the whole trip stressed about what I'm missing." She rubbed her face. So I said no, and now she's upset, and I feel guilty. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd stopped talking to most of my family after the divorce. It was easier than explaining why I'd let everything fall apart. "That sounds hard," I said finally. Claire laughed, but it didn't sound happy. "You're very good at that." "At what?" "Not trying to fix things. Most people want to give advice or tell me what I should do. You just listen. I don't know what you should do." "Exactly." She looked at me. "That's why it helps." The washer beeped. We moved the clothes to the dryers and sat back down. Claire picked up her phone again, scrolled through something, then put it away. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why do you work nights?" I'd expected a different question. "I don't know. I needed a job. That one was available." "But you've stayed." "Yeah." "Why?" I thought about it. About how I'd taken the job because the divorce had just finalized and I needed something that would keep me away from the apartment Laura and I used to share. About how the night shift meant I didn't have to see anyone, didn't have to perform normalcy, didn't have to pretend I was fine. "I guess I liked not being on the same schedule as everyone else," I said. It felt like I was living in a different world. Separate. Claire nodded slowly. "I get that." We sat there while the dryers ran. After a while, she said, "I moved here after my divorce. 3 years ago. I took the teaching job because it was available and it was far enough away that I wouldn't run into him at the grocery store." "Does it help? Being far away?" "I don't know. Sometimes I think distance just gives you more room to avoid things." She looked at the ceiling. "I'm really good at avoiding things." "Me too." She smiled at that. A real smile, small but genuine. When the dryers finished, we both folded our laundry in silence. At the stairs, Claire stopped. "Thanks," she said. "For what?" "For not making this weird." I didn't know what this was, but I nodded anyway. 2 weeks later, on a Friday night, I was sitting on my couch at 11 o'clock trying to decide if I was hungry when someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it, and Claire was standing there in sweatpants and an oversized sweater, holding a book. "Hey," she said. "Were you about to leave for work?" "Not for another hour." "Can I come in?" I stepped back. She walked past me into the living room and stood there for a second, looking around like she was trying to figure out what to do next. "I can't sleep," she said. "And I have a stack of essays to grade, but if I look at one more badly structured paragraph about the Great Gatsby, I'm going to lose my mind." "Okay." I was sitting in my apartment thinking about watching TV, but I didn't want to watch TV alone, and then I thought, she stopped. "This is weird. I'm making this weird." "It's not weird. I'm bothering you before your shift." "You're not." She looked at me, uncertain. Then she sat down in the chair across from the couch. Not next to me. Across. Like she was maintaining some kind of boundary even while crossing another one. I sat back down on the couch. "I don't really know why I'm here," she said. "That's fine. I think I just didn't want to be alone tonight." "Okay." She opened the book in her lap, then closed it again. "Can I tell you something?" "Yeah. I hate teaching." She said it quietly, like admitting something she wasn't supposed to say out loud. "I don't mean I'm bad at it. I think I'm actually pretty good at it. But I hate it. I hate the parents and the meetings and the way every year I start out thinking this time will be different, and then by October I'm already exhausted." "Why do you keep doing it?" "Because I don't know what else I'd do. And because quitting feels like giving up. Like admitting I made a mistake." She looked at me. "I built my whole life around this job after the divorce. It was supposed to be the thing that made me feel like myself again. But I don't think I know who that is anymore." I understood that more than I wanted to. "I took the night shift because I didn't want to be around people," I said. "I told myself it was temporary. That I'd find something better eventually. But I didn't look. I just stayed there because staying was easier than deciding what I actually wanted." Claire nodded. "What do you want?" "I don't know." I'd never said that out loud before. I got used to not wanting anything. It felt safer. "Yeah," she said quietly. "It does." We sat there for a while. Claire opened her book again but didn't read it. I turned on the TV with the sound low, some late-night talk show I wasn't really watching. Around midnight, I looked over and Claire's eyes were closed. Not asleep, just resting. The book was still in her lap. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah." She opened her eyes. "I should probably go." "You have work." "I have 45 minutes. She stayed. We didn't talk much after that. We just sat there, the TV playing quietly, both of us too tired to do anything else. At 12:30, I stood up to get ready for work, and Claire stood up too. "Thanks," she said. "You don't have to keep thanking me." "I know. But I want to." She headed for the door, then stopped. "Owen?" "Yeah?" "I'm not your teacher tonight." She said it carefully, like the words mattered. "I'm just tired. I don't want to perform competence or have answers or grade anything. I just wanted to sit here and not be alone." I got it. I got it completely. "Anytime," I said. She smiled and left. I went to work, and the whole shift felt strange. I counted pallets and scanned inventory, and all I could think about was Claire sitting in my living room, admitting she was tired of pretending. When I got home the next morning, there was a note under my door, "Thank you for not making it weird." I kept the note. The following week, something changed at work. My supervisor called me into the office and asked if I'd be interested in switching to day shift. Someone had quit, and they needed coverage. The hours were 7 to 3, Monday through Friday. Better pay, better benefits. I said I'd think about it. I didn't need to think about it. I knew what switching shifts would mean. I'd be on the same schedule as everyone else. I'd have to be present during the day, interact with people, give up the separation I'd built my life around. But I also knew I'd been using the night shift as an excuse. An excuse not to try. Not to want anything. Not to risk anything. I thought about Claire sitting in my apartment saying she didn't know who she was anymore. I thought about how I'd been living in a holding pattern for 2 years, telling myself it was fine because fine was safe. I took the day shift. I didn't tell Claire right away. I just switched my schedule and started coming home at 3:30 in the afternoon instead of 7:30 in the morning. The first day, her car was already in the driveway when I pulled in. I saw her curtain move when I walked up the stairs. That night, she knocked on my door. "Did you switch shifts?" she asked when I opened it. "Yeah." "Why?" I could have lied. Could have said it was for the pay or the benefits or because I was tired of working nights. But I didn't want to lie to her. "I wanted to," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Do you want to have dinner sometime? Like, actually have dinner. Not separately with a wall between us." "Yeah. I do." "My place or yours?" "Yours." "Friday?" "Friday." She smiled and went back to her apartment. Friday came. I went to work, came home, showered, and stood in my kitchen staring at the wall for 10 minutes trying to figure out what I was doing. At 6, I went next door and knocked. Claire answered wearing jeans and the same oversized sweater she'd worn that night she came to my apartment. She'd made pasta. Too much pasta, from the looks of it. Enough for 4 people. I got nervous and kept adding things, she said. "It's fine." We ate at her small kitchen table. The conversation was halting at first, both of us trying too hard. But after a while, it settled into something easier. We talked about work. About the duplex. About nothing in particular. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even particularly deep. It was just 2 people eating dinner together because they decided they didn't want to eat alone anymore. When I got up to leave, Claire walked me to the door. "This was nice," she said. "Yeah." "Same time next week?" "Yeah." I went back to my apartment and sat on the couch, and I could hear her moving around through the wall. Washing dishes. Turning on the TV. The same sounds I'd been listening to for months. But they meant something different now. The next Sunday, we did laundry at the same time like always. But this time, when we went back upstairs, Claire stopped at my door instead of hers. "You want to watch something?" she asked. "Sure." She came in and sat in the same chair as before. I turned on the TV. We watched some documentary about ocean life that neither of us cared about. Halfway through, I looked over and she'd fallen asleep in the chair, her head tilted against the armrest. I let her sleep. When the documentary ended, I turned off the TV and got a blanket from my room. I put it over her and went to my own room. In the morning, I woke up and she was gone. There was a note on the coffee table, "Thanks for the blanket." It became a pattern. Friday dinners. Sunday laundry and then TV. Weeknights when one of us was too tired to be alone and just knocked on the other's door. We weren't dating. We never talked about what we were doing. We just kept showing up. In March, I came home from work and Claire's door was open. I could hear music playing inside. I stopped on the landing, and she called out, "I made too much pasta again." I didn't go to my apartment first. I didn't change clothes or put my bag down. I just walked into her apartment. She was standing at the stove, stirring a pot, and she looked over when I came in. "You're early," she said. "Got off at 2:30. Good day?" "Fine. You?" Same. I sat down at her kitchen table. She served the pasta and sat across from me. We ate and talked about nothing important, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later, when I went back to my apartment, I stood in the middle of my living room and looked around. Everything was the same as it had been when I moved in. Same furniture. Same dishes in the cupboard. Same quiet. But I wasn't the same. I'd spent 2 years building a life where I didn't need anyone. Where I didn't want anything. Where I could just exist without risk. And then Claire had moved in next door, and slowly, without either of us meaning to, we'd started existing together instead of separately. It wasn't love. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was presence. It was choosing to show up. It was deciding that isolation wasn't actually safer, just lonelier. I heard her moving around through the wall. Heard her turn on the television. Heard her settle onto her couch. I sat down on my own couch and listened, and for the first time in years, the silence between the sounds didn't feel empty. It felt like possibility.